I was talking to a friend of mine only the other day about farming, and we were discussing how can we get more young people into farming? Now, I'm not talking about the farming that, is that big monoculture, great swathes of the countryside, one simple crop, no hedgerows, no insects, just sort of obliterated the landscape with one basic crop, massive combine harvesters and all of that. No, because that's kind of impossible to get into unless you're multi-millionaire. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about real farming, mixed farming, people who've got animals and then also crops and vegetables and fruit. I'm talking about stuff that's actually very useful to local communities. If only we could get back to that sense of mixed farming where people can go and actually visit a farm and see a whole range of stuff. I mean, these days you go to a farm shop and you have a look round and you go, oh, look at that lovely produce and all of that's very nice. But it doesn't come from that one farm. It comes from a number of different places, and they're not necessarily all local because farms seem to specialise in one or two crops. Now, I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. My idea is to sort of go back to the old days where people concentrated on a whole load of different things so that within one community you had everything that you could possibly need being grown locally. And perhaps obviously things like oranges and lemons, they would be speciality coming from perhaps abroad. You never know. But the whole point is, how do you get more people into farming? And the reason I'm interested in getting more younger people into farming as a way of life, as opposed to an industry, is because we need to get people to grow more organic food. We've discussed endlessly the nonsense of processed food and how little the vitamins and nutrients are in the food. And of course, I'm hoping now that people are slowly moving away from all that processed food. Somebody sent me a link to an article in one of the newspapers. I don't read the newspapers. I don't have a television. I don't see the mainstream media anymore. So people have to send me the occasional link to say, oh, look, this is what they're saying on the mainstream media. What a load of old nonsense it is. Although this one actually had some sense behind it because it said, it did say that ultra processed food is now thought to be not good for you. Oh, whoopee. I think we've known that for a long time. The fact that there is no nutrients and goodness and minerals and vitamins in that food, that it's been manipulated, warmed up to high temperatures. The whole essence of that food has changed. It means that it's not natural. And us as human beings have got to only eat as much as we can proper, real, natural food, because that's what we survive on. The gut needs it. But getting younger people into farming to be able to grow all of that so that we can have a plethora of this good quality food and then slowly bring the price down a little bit of organic food. I mean, real food does cost, let's not argue about that. We have had artificially low costs of food. People just treat food as a fuel. It's something that they have to do. They give it no more sense than that. A quick pizza here, or a takeaway from over there, or some TV dinner here, as if that is sufficient. But of course it isn't. Food is a much, much more important ingredient of one's life. Not only is eating real, proper, decent quality food essential to our health and well-being, and also keeping us alive much longer and keeping us bright in the mind, but if you treat it well, it also embraces the family, brings you together when you all sit down and have a meal together instead of being sporadically all over the place and sitting there in front of your computer upstairs in your bedroom with a little bit of food that mum's cooked you in a 10-minute thing in the microwave. So we've got to get people back to eating properly, eating together. But this is the problem, is how do we get young people into growing food and rearing animals, because it's so damn expensive. And then my friend said he would be interested in having a part share in a cow. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I wonder if a number of people would get involved in a part share of an animal, like a cow or a sheep or a pig or a number of chickens, and that they would then contribute a little bit to the rearing of that animal. So at the end of the animal's life, and it's been slaughtered, obviously, they end up with a delivery of a chunk of meat. And okay, that meat might be a little bit more expensive than if they'd gone to the supermarket, I grant you, but they may have quite a lot. Now, it depends how many, let's say, how many people can have a share of one animal. Whether you just have perhaps one animal, say a cow, is divided into 4, which would give you quite a lot of meat, I would imagine, or you have perhaps 10 people having a share of that cow. And now, there's obviously going to be a number of people where there's obviously a break-off point where it becomes silly, because otherwise you're only going to get one chop and that's about it if there's too many people. But if you've got, say, I don't know, 10 cows and you've got 4 people sponsoring a cow, so that's 40 people sponsoring that field of cows, helping in advance somebody setting up a farm, then it strikes me that could be an interesting way forward. Now, of course, we were just chatting and talking hypothetically and saying, oh, you could do this and you could do that, and wouldn't it be great? And I said, you know, people are already very clever. I bet there are schemes out there where people are already doing this. Now, I don't know of any of those schemes, but if you do let me know, because it would be interesting, would it not, if we can help younger farmers buying up a piece of land and doing the farming that they want. If it's, say, a young couple and they just want to rear cows or they want to rear pigs, and the difference is they need some sort of start-up money, the banks aren't being very helpful, and they don't know what they would do when they've reared these animals and got them to market, or even vegetables, of course, and growing vegetables. Somebody wants to grow potatoes and carrots and cabbage and all those things, and somebody, you know, a group of people get together and say, do you know what, we will invest so that we end up with 20 or 30 cabbages and half a ton of potatoes or whatever it is. What a brilliant scheme, because then if they can pay in advance, it helps those younger people get going. And I think that's what we need. We need to help and invest in our farmers of the future. Now, not everybody wants to be a farmer, but there are plenty of people who I know would like to have the opportunity. But like everything at the moment, everything's expensive, everything's difficult, the paperwork and all of that. If we can start more to think about trying to help those people who want to feed us with healthy food, then I think we've got a rosy future. Because imagine that you've got a share in a cow or a pig or an animal or a whole load of potatoes or whatever it is. You've got access then to go and talk to that farmer, maybe come in and help them and get involved, get back onto the land. You may only want to do it in your spare time. But what an amazing thing. And I think we need to have that respect for food and respect for the animals, giving them the best life they can. Also, when it comes to harvesting vegetables and things like that, part of your investment might be that you will be there for the lifting of the potatoes, the harvesting of whatever other vegetables and fruits and things, picking the cherries from the tree. If you've invested a little bit of your money in helping farmers get going, what an amazing thing that would be to do. I would be fascinated to see your comments and hear what you think. And if there, as I say, if there are some schemes already doing this, it would be brilliant to find out where they are and how they're being operated. Organic, healthy, good quality food is what we need to get ourselves back, to turn ourselves away from the supermarkets, from the big conglomerates who want to control us and feed us inferior products, things like bugs and mealworms, or they put stuff onto our fruit that's not very healthy. We've got to get away from that. We've got to get back to wholesome, healthy food. And this might be a way. I'm throwing it out there as an idea. Let me know what you think.